The chandeliers glittered above me, their light spilling across polished marble like a stage set for joy. But joy had no place for me. My son's hand cracked against my face so suddenly that my glasses flew from my nose, skidding across the floor. The sound of the impact carried farther than the music. 200 guests froze in their seats, forks suspended, champagne flutes trembling midair. I touched my burning cheek, but the sting inside my chest was sharper. "Stop being selfish!" Ethan barked, his voice amplified by the microphone he had claimed only moments earlier. His bride stood beside him, her smile fixed, as if rehearsed. Gasps rippled through the ballroom, but no one rose. Not one friend, not one cousin. I bent down, groping for my glasses, my hands shaking so badly that I nearly dropped them again. I straightened, and the weight of every eye pressed on me. I wanted to vanish, but the pain rooted me to the spot. I had buried my husband alone only weeks before, clutching his cold hand until the nurses pulled me away. And now, in this room drenched in golden light, my only child chose to disgrace me. I whispered, almost to myself, "You will regret this." My voice cracked, but I forced it out. His smirk faltered for a second before hardening again. The music resumed as if cued, laughter swelling, and I realized that in this crowd of hundreds, I was truly alone. I turned, each step heavy, my purse clutched like armor. The doors opened onto the night air, cool and sharp against my swollen skin. My body shook, but somewhere deep, the trembling shifted into something steadier. I pulled my phone from my bag, my thumb hovering over a number I had promised never to dial. For 30 years, I had carried myself as a woman of patience, of compromise. But tonight, my son had drawn the line with his own hand across my face. I pressed the call button. When the line clicked, my voice surprised me with its calm. "It's time," I said. "Meet me in 30 minutes." I ended the call and sat in my car, watching the ballroom's glowing windows, hearing the muffled thump of music and the echo of my humiliation. My glasses sat crooked on my nose, and I pressed them straight with fingers that still shook. Every second dragged like a stone. Then Robert's voice rose in memory, his words from the night we signed the trust: "Protect what we built." Not even from Ethan. The dashboard clock ticked forward. My chest tightened, but my breathing slowed. I whispered his name into the silence, promising him that what he left behind would not be squandered. And as headlights cut into the parking lot, turning toward me, I knew the night was about to shift. The headlights slowed, then dimmed as the car rolled to a stop beside me. 2 doors opened in unison, the sound crisp against the night. Daniel stepped out first, taller than I remembered, his suit jacket pressed sharp. Beside him, Anna adjusted the strap of her purse, her heels striking the pavement with deliberate rhythm. For years, their names had lived only in my phone, kept hidden like insurance papers no one wants to admit they might one day need. And tonight, that day had arrived. I swallowed, tasting salt at the back of my throat. "Thank you for coming," I whispered. My voice trembled, but not from fear. It trembled because somewhere beneath the grief, a thread of strength was beginning to pull taut. Daniel nodded once. "You said 30 minutes. We came." His eyes flicked toward the glowing ballroom, the laughter muffled by thick walls of glass. Anna's gaze landed on me, steady and unblinking. "Are you sure?" The question hung heavy. I looked at the reflection of the ballroom lights on my crooked glasses and thought of Robert's hand in mine, growing cold. I thought of Ethan's text that he was too busy with his girlfriend to stand at his father's grave. I thought of the slap that had shattered more than glass. I straightened my shoulders. "I'm sure." We walked together toward the entrance. The music seeped out as the doors opened, the air suddenly warm and perfumed with lilies and expensive champagne. Conversations stuttered into silence as people turned. I felt hundreds of eyes again, but this time I did not shrink. Daniel cleared his throat, his voice carrying with surprising authority. "My name is Daniel," he announced, steady and resonant. "And before this wedding continues, I have something to say." Claire's face drained of color. Her hands trembled around her bouquet, her lips parting but no sound emerging. "Daniel," she finally gasped, "what are you doing here? What am I doing?" His laugh was bitter. "I'm here because you're still my wife." Gasps swept the room. Guests shifted in their seats, heads swiveling between Claire and Ethan. Claire's mouth moved in frantic denial, but Daniel's hand rose, pulling papers from his jacket. The rustle of legal sheets sounded louder than the orchestra had all evening. "You never filed the divorce," he said, his eyes boring into her. "You lied to him. You lied to everyone here." Ethan staggered a step back. His face drained as he looked from his bride to the man with the papers. "What?" Before Claire could stammer another excuse, Anna stepped forward. The click of her heels echoed, slicing through the silence. She stopped just a few feet from Ethan, her eyes locking on his with a force that pinned him where he stood. "And you," she said, her voice low and controlled. "You think you were free too, don't you? You think you could just erase me?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Who the hell are you?" She didn't flinch. "I'm Anna, your wife. Or did you forget our divorce was never finalized?" A wave of whispers surged through the crowd. Someone near the front muttered, "Bigamy." Another pulled out a phone, recording, as if the truth itself needed proof. Anna held up her own stack of documents, the bold stamps and signatures catching the chandelier's glare. "You married her while still tied to me. Do you understand what that means?" The silence shattered into chaos. Guests stood, voices overlapping, chairs scraping. The band lowered their instruments, uncertain whether to play or flee. Ethan's face twisted with panic. "You're lying," he spat, though his voice cracked. I stepped closer, my purse clenched tight against my side. "No, Ethan, the lies are yours, and tonight they've caught up with you." Claire's scream pierced the air, high and raw. "You ruined everything!" She stumbled forward, her gown dragging, her eyes wild. I braced myself, but before she reached me, the ballroom doors slammed open. A voice bellowed from behind. "Police!" Uniformed officers strode in, their presence commanding the room. Guests gasped, phones flew higher to capture every second. The music died instantly. Claire froze mid-lunge, her hands clawed in the air. Ethan's bravado drained, his fists unclenching. "Ethan Miller, Claire Johnson," the lead officer barked. "Step back immediately. Hands where we can see them." Claire tried to argue, her shriek collapsing into sobs as the cold click of handcuffs cut through her words. Ethan thrashed once, his voice cracking. "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything." His protest was swallowed by the metal snap binding his wrists. The crowd parted as if the floor itself had split, leaving a path from the stage to the exit. I stood still, my heart thundering, my body rigid. My son, the boy I once rocked to sleep, was being dragged away in chains on his wedding night. As they passed, his eyes locked on mine. His voice dropped low, almost pleading, yet lined with venom. "Mom, how could you?" I pressed a trembling hand to my chest, steadying my breath. "You did this to yourself." The officers led them out, the sound of doors slamming behind them, leaving a vacuum of silence. For a moment, all that remained was the faint clink of champagne glasses left untouched, and the collective breath of a room that had just witnessed the collapse of an entire life. The whispers rose again, relentless. "Bigamy, fraud, inheritance." Someone muttered, "I saw it all. It's going viral." I felt the sting on my cheek again, but beneath it lay something harder, resolve forged in humiliation. The night had begun with a slap. It ended with the truth. Later, in the quiet of my home, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the pile of unpaid bills, Robert's chair still in the corner. The house hummed with silence. My phone buzzed once. A message from my lawyer. Court date confirmed. I closed my eyes, hearing Robert's voice as if he were seated across from me. Protect what we built. I whispered into the stillness. I will. The courthouse smelled faintly of dust and paper. The kind of scent that settles deep in your lungs and makes you aware of every shallow breath. I sat stiffly at the plaintiff's table, my folder pressed against my lap so tightly the edges bent under my grip. My lawyer leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. Stay calm, we're prepared. I nodded, though my throat was dry and my stomach churned as if I had swallowed stones. Across the aisle, Ethan slouched in his chair, his suit wrinkled, his jaw shadowed by stubble. He looked like a man who had been dragged here unwillingly, though in truth, he had summoned this battle himself. When the judge entered, the bailiff called for silence, and the room rose. I stood with them, knees aching from both age and anxiety. As the judge settled behind the bench, I glanced at Ethan. He smirked as though he had already claimed victory. That smirk mirrored the boy I once knew, the boy who thought a crooked smile could excuse any wrong. Only now it was sharpened with cruelty. The judge cleared his throat. Mr. Miller, please state your claim. Ethan jumped to his feet, his voice rising with false confidence. It's simple, Your Honor. My mother is withholding money that rightfully belongs to me. My father's inheritance, $1 million. She's hoarding it when it should be mine. I'm his son. It's my right. Gasps whispered through the small gallery. I sat still, my pulse pounding in my ears. The judge turned toward me. Mrs. Miller? I rose slowly, gripping the folder with both hands. My knees trembled, but my voice, though cracked at first, steadied with each word. Your Honor, my husband and I prepared for this. The inheritance is in a trust. It is in my name, with documents proving clear ownership. My son has no legal claim to it. Robert made sure of that before he passed. Ethan slammed his fist against the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. She's lying. She twisted everything so she can keep it all. My father would have wanted me to have it. I closed my eyes for a second, hearing Robert's gentle voice, not the thunder of my son's anger. When I opened them, I met Ethan's glare with one of my own. Your father wanted it safe. Safe from greed. Safe for the family. The judge raised his hand, silencing us both. Mr. Miller, sit down. The court will review the documents. My lawyer stepped forward, presenting the trust. Every signature, every date, every notarized line was there, evidence of Robert's foresight, of his determination to protect what we had built. The judge read carefully, his eyes scanning the pages with deliberate weight. At last, he looked up. It is clear. The inheritance belongs solely to Mrs. Miller. Case dismissed. For a moment, the words hung in the air like a bell's final toll. Relief surged through me so suddenly that my knees nearly buckled. I whispered silently, Robert, we did it. It's safe. But across the room, Ethan's face flushed crimson. His fists clenched, his jaw ground tight. As the judge left, Ethan stormed toward me. His shoulder slammed against mine, his breath hot in my ear. You won today, he hissed, but you'll regret this. My body froze, rigid with the weight of his threat. I watched his back as he shoved open the doors and disappeared into the corridor, leaving only the echo of his rage. For the first time in months, I thought the storm had passed, but I was wrong. Whispers followed me everywhere in the weeks that came. At the grocery store, in the post office, even on the sidewalk outside my house. The slap at the wedding had spread like wildfire, captured on phones, replayed online, dissected in articles with headlines that burned my name into public shame. Mother slapped at wedding after refusing inheritance. Groom arrested on wedding night amid family scandal. I never searched for them, but they found me anyway, flashing on strangers' screens as I walked past. At the produce aisle, two women stared at me before one leaned closer to the other and whispered, "That's her, the one whose son humiliated her in front of everyone." Their eyes softened when they realized I had heard. For the first time, I wasn't just pitied. I was respected, almost admired, because I had survived something most couldn't imagine. Yet the recognition twisted inside me. I didn't want fame. I wanted my son back. But Ethan was unraveling. I overheard neighbors speaking outside my window one evening. "He lost his job," one said, and Claire left him, packed her things, and vanished. The other sighed. "Greed eats people alive." Their words sank deep. Ethan had chosen her, chosen money, chosen everything except the family that raised him. And now it slipped from his hands piece by piece. At the post office, I paused by the bulletin board. His name scrawled across a public eviction notice, bold letters declaring his failure. My chest tightened. I remembered the boy who once scraped his knee and cried for me, the boy who begged me not to leave his bedside at night. That name, the same name, was now tied to debt, lawsuits, humiliation. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. I was emptied long ago. One afternoon, my phone rang. An old friend's voice came trembling through the line. "Aurora, I don't know what to say. I saw the video. I'm so sorry." I forced a small laugh, though it sounded hollow even to me. "Don't be. I didn't create that mess. He did." But when I hung up, silence weighed on me heavier than ever. My house felt like a mausoleum. Robert's chair sat in the corner, his glasses folded neatly on the side table, exactly where he had left them. The clock ticked louder, each second mocking the emptiness. I told myself I had won. I told myself I had protected what we built. But in the stillness, I wondered if winning was just another word for losing in slow motion. Then came the letter. It appeared in my mailbox on an ordinary morning, the sun bright, the air cool. His handwriting scrolled across the envelope, unmistakable. My hands trembled as I carried it to the kitchen table. I sat staring at it for long minutes, my pulse thudding, my throat dry. Finally, I tore it open. The words rushed at me, uneven, desperate. "Mom, please, I've lost everything. Claire's gone. I have no home, no job, no money. I'm sick. I need you. Please don't turn your back on me. I'm still your son." I read it once, then again, until the ink blurred through my tears. Still my son? The question gnawed at me. Where had he been when Robert lay dying? Where had he been when I begged him to come to the funeral? Where had he been when he struck me before 200 witnesses, demanding money as though I owed him? My hand pressed against the table, steadying myself. Memories flooded. The hospital bed, the casket, the ballroom, the courtroom. Every chance he had to choose love, and every time he chose greed instead. I picked up the phone, considering calling him. My thumb hovered over the keys, but my hand froze mid-air. What would I say? That I forgave him? That I'd give him one more chance? I lowered the phone slowly. "No," I whispered, "not this time." The ache in my chest grew heavy, but beneath it was something clearer, truth. Saving him again would not save me. It would destroy me. I folded the letter carefully and slid it into the drawer beside Robert's wedding ring. My palm lingered on the wood, as though speaking to him through it. "I love him, Robert. God knows I do. But love doesn't mean I let him keep breaking me." I reached for another folder, the one with the foundation papers. The lawyer had drawn them weeks ago at my request. Funds set aside, protected, untouchable, dedicated to women like me. Women whose families tried to strip them bare. I signed the last page with steady hands. For the first time in years, I felt control return to me. The house remained silent, save for the ticking of the clock. I sat back, my gaze lingering on the drawer where Ethan's letter rested. My voice came out in barely a whisper. "This is the last time I save you." The silence closed around me, heavy, final, unbroken. The first letter slid under my door like a shadow. I found it in the morning, lying against the rug, my name scratched in bold black ink with no return address. The paper inside was brief, but its sentences carried the weight of a hammer. "Return the money. Stop your lies. If you don't, I'll take everything you own." The signature at the bottom was my son's. Ethan's handwriting, once used for birthday cards and grocery lists when he was a boy, now twisted into threats. I sat at the kitchen table, the letter trembling between my fingers. For a long time, I couldn't move. Then I folded it neatly, placed it in the drawer beside Robert's ring, and closed it with a soft push. By evening, the knock came. It wasn't neighborly, sharp, insistent, each rap echoing like a demand. I opened the door to a man in a wrinkled suit holding a heavy envelope. He didn't meet my eyes. "You've been served," he said, and turned back to his car. Inside, the envelope spilled pages across my table. Allegations in thick paragraphs, words like weapons, conversion, elder neglect, emotional cruelty. I read each line with numb disbelief. My own son had turned me into a villain in ink. I pressed my hands against the table to keep them from shaking, the wood cool beneath my palms. The phone rang before I could gather the pages. I answered without thinking. "Mom?" His voice was steady, almost calm. "This is your last chance. End this before it gets worse." I held the receiver tight. "You've already made it worse." "You don't understand," he said quickly, impatient. "I need that money. You're old, you'll never use it. Hand it over and this ends." My breath caught. "I buried your father alone, and you're suing me for the money he worked his whole life to protect?" Silence stretched. Then came a short, sharp laugh. "You'll regret this." The line went dead. That night, I walked the house with every lamp burning, shadows chasing me from room to room. When I reached the back door, I noticed the gate hanging open, its latch bent. My chest tightened. I swept the yard with a flashlight, beam jittering across the grass. Nothing was gone, but the air carried the sense of intrusion. Someone had been close enough to touch the windows. I shut the latch hard, as if slamming a door on fear. Sleep never came. I sat upright in Robert's chair, the lamp humming beside me, my body tense as though waiting for another knock. By morning, I called my lawyer. I could hardly steady my voice. He listened quietly while I read from the papers. "They're trying to rattle you," he said at last. "But they can't touch the trust. It's ironclad. What you're holding are empty threats dressed as legal language." "I don't feel empty," I whispered. "You're allowed to feel shaken," he said gently. "But you're not alone. We'll file for protection. If he comes near you, the law is on your side. And if these posts keep spreading, we'll push back. Line by line." His voice steadied me more than his promises. I hung up with instructions in hand. Forward the letters, sign the forms, stay vigilant. I made tea, watched steam curl from the cup, and forced myself to breathe slower. The second envelope came the next day. A different messenger, the same weight in my hands. This one was worse. Photos printed from the internet. Still frames of me at the wedding. My glasses shattered on the floor, my hand pressed to my cheek. Beneath them, captions twisted into accusations. She provoked him. She ruined her own family. At the bottom, a circle drawn in red marker around the foundation papers I had signed. My name smeared under his scrawl as if goodness itself were a crime. I pressed the pages flat, my fingers leaving damp spots where tears fell. Then I called my lawyer again. He promised a formal reply, but promises couldn't keep the house from feeling smaller with every passing hour. That evening, Mrs. Flores from across the street knocked with a casserole dish and concern in her eyes. She spoke softly, as though not to break me further. "My nephew can install motion lights," she offered, "and a stronger lock." Her kindness undid me more than the threats. I nodded, unable to speak. The next afternoon, her nephew arrived with tools. By sundown, a new latch bit down hard, and a sensor blinked alive when I stepped onto the porch. For the first time in days, the night air didn't feel like an enemy. But safety is fragile. Near midnight, the light flared. Through the curtains, a shadow passed, tall, lingering, pausing by the glass. I held my breath as a fingertip scraped the window. A second later, it was gone. The yard emptied, the light clicked off, and the silence pressed harder than the fear. The next morning, I went to the courthouse with my lawyer. We walked across marble floors that echoed each step. I signed papers for a protection order, my hand steadier than expected. The clerk stamped the date with a heavy thud, and I felt a strange relief, proof that I wasn't powerless. On the way out, my lawyer tore a flyer from a bulletin board and handed it to me. "Support group for families facing financial abuse." The words stung, but also soothed. At least someone had named what I was living. Back home, I placed the new court papers into the drawer with Robert's ring and Ethan's letters. The weight of wood closing felt like sealing a vault. 3 items, 3 memories, 3 battles I hadn't chosen but had to fight. The phone rang that afternoon. A young woman's voice wavered on the other end. "My name is Jenna. Mrs. Flores gave me your number. My brother has been taking money from our mother. She doesn't know how to say no. Could you tell me what to do?" I swallowed the ache in my throat and repeated what my lawyer had told me. Legal aid, protection orders, support groups. She scribbled as I spoke, her breathing shifting from panic to rhythm. "Thank you," she whispered. "You gave me a place to start." When the call ended, I stared at the phone for a long moment. For the first time in weeks, the silence felt less empty. That night, another envelope slid through my mail slot. This one contained only a single sentence scrawled in thick marker. "You are nothing without me, Mother." I read it until the words blurred, then folded it and laid it beside the others. My hand lingered on Robert's ring, cool against my palm. I lifted it to my neck on a chain and fastened the clasp. The weight settled over my chest, patient, grounding. I stepped out onto the porch. The new light blinked on, washing me in steady glow. Cars passed in the distance. A child's laughter drifted from a yard, and moths battered themselves against the bulb. The world went on. I sat down, hands folded, the ring warm against my skin. My breath found a rhythm, and in that small, fragile rhythm, something inside me caught, a quiet ember refusing to die. The protection order was barely a week old when Ethan came after me again, this time not with paper threats, but in person. It was a Saturday morning. The market was crowded with families buying apples, school children weaving through stalls with coins in their hands, the smell of fried dough thick in the air. I had just paid for a sack of potatoes when I felt a presence at my back. A voice, low and sharp, slid into my ear. "You think a judge's stamp keeps me away?" I stiffened. My grip tightened on the paper bag until it crinkled. I turned slowly. Ethan stood inches from me, his hair unkempt, his eyes bloodshot, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. His face was thinner than before, but the smirk clung stubbornly. "Leave me alone," I said, steady but not loud enough to draw attention. He leaned closer, his breath sour. "You made me look like a criminal. You brought cops into my wedding. You paraded papers in front of a judge like I was a thief. You ruined my life." I looked straight into his eyes. "You ruined your own life, Ethan." His jaw twitched. The smirk cracked. "I'll get that money," he hissed. "One way or another." I didn't answer. I walked away, my heart pounding against my ribs, each step heavy as stone. Behind me, I heard him laugh, a hollow sound that echoed longer than it should have. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the potatoes unpeeled in their bag. The house smelled faintly of dust and old wood. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. My voice shook. He approached me, at the market, silence on the line. Then his voice hardened. "We'll file a violation. He'll face consequences." The word consequences felt fragile in my ear. My son had already faced arrest, humiliation, public disgrace. None of it had changed him. What consequence could? The hearing for the violation was set for Monday morning. I arrived in a gray dress, Robert's ring around my neck, papers clutched in my bag. The courtroom was smaller this time, but the air still pressed heavy. Ethan sat across from me, looking worse than before, his eyes darting as though chasing thoughts too fast to catch. The judge entered, her gavel sharp. "Mr. Miller, you are here on a violation of a protection order." Ethan leapt up, his voice rough. "I didn't do anything. I just talked to her. She's my mother." The judge's gaze cut him down. "You were ordered to stay away. Do you deny approaching her at the market?" He stammered. I only wanted to explain." I stood when called. My voice shook at first, but steadied. "Your Honor, he cornered me. He threatened me. I was afraid." The judge leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Mr. Miller, this court does not take violations lightly. You are hereby fined, and any further contact will result in jail time." Ethan's face flushed crimson. His fists balled at his sides, but he said nothing. He sat down hard, his eyes locked on me like knives. I walked out of the courthouse with my lawyer at my side. The sunlight felt harsh, almost mocking. "This will stop him," my lawyer said, though even he sounded uncertain. But it didn't stop him. Days later, a new envelope arrived. This one was different. Not threats, not demands. It contained copies of my bank statements. Accounts I hadn't shown anyone but Robert years ago. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Balances, transfers, the trust details, all laid out. He had broken into something private. My lawyer confirmed it. Unauthorized access, likely stolen documents. But hearing it didn't calm me. The thought that Ethan knew the intimate numbers of my life, the safety net Robert had left me, made my skin crawl. I pressed the papers flat, whispering to the empty room. "Why, Ethan? Why is money the only language you speak?" That night, the motion light blinked on again. This time, I didn't freeze. I opened the door and stood tall, letting the glow fall on me. The yard was empty, but I spoke into the dark. "You won't break me," I said aloud. My voice shook, but grew stronger with each word. "Not again." Weeks passed. Letters slowed. The house grew quiet again. I allowed myself to believe maybe he had given up. Maybe the wall of legal orders and public shame had finally stopped him. Then one morning, the phone rang. A journalist's voice introduced herself briskly. "Mrs. Miller, do you have a comment about your son's claim that you embezzled from your own foundation?" I froze. "What?" "He's gone public," she said. "He's telling anyone who'll listen that you created the foundation as a way to hide money from him. We're running a story." I hung up without answering. My breath came ragged. The foundation, the one thing that gave me purpose beyond the wreckage, was now tainted by his lies. That evening, I attended the support group advertised on the flyer. The church basement smelled of coffee and dust. Folding chairs circled under fluorescent lights. Women sat with hands clasped, eyes tired but alert. When it was my turn, I spoke. My words felt clumsy at first, but soon they poured out. My son slapped me in front of 200 people. He demanded $1 million. He called me selfish for not giving him what his father and I worked decades to build. And now he sues me, threatens me, and smears the one good thing I tried to create from the ashes. Silence followed, then nods. A woman across the circle reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're not alone," she said. Her grip was firm, grounding. For the first time in months, I believed it. The breaking point came at the Foundation's first public event, a small fundraiser at the community hall. Volunteers set out folding tables, neighbors baked pies, and a local band tuned their instruments. I stood at the podium, nerves jangling, Robert's ring warm against my skin. I began speaking about why the Foundation mattered, the women it would help, the lives it would steady. Then, halfway through, the doors slammed open. Ethan strode in. Gasps filled the room. His face was pale, his eyes wild, his shirt untucked. He carried nothing in his hands, but his voice carried everything.
"She's a fraud," he shouted. "She stole from me. She stole from my father. Don't give her a dime."
The crowd erupted in whispers. Some stood, some stared. I felt my pulse hammer, but I gripped the podium tighter. I met his eyes and spoke into the microphone, my voice clear. "This is not about you, Ethan. This is about protecting women who have been preyed upon by the very people who should have loved them." His laugh cracked.
"You think you're better than me? You ruined my life. You dragged my name through courts and cops and headlines, and now you hide behind charity."
I stepped out from behind the podium. My hands no longer shook. "No, Ethan. I stand in front of it. I built this to protect what your father worked for, and to protect myself from the son who turned his back on both of us." The room fell silent. Even the band lowered their instruments. Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came. For a moment, he looked like the boy who once scraped his knee and cried for me. Then his face hardened again, and he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Applause rose slowly, then stronger. People came forward, pressing donations into my hands, their voices soft with respect. "Stay strong," they said. "Don't let him win." That night, alone in my house, I sat with the envelopes, the court papers, the protection order, the ring around my neck. I whispered into the silence. "Robert, I did it. I stood. Even if it broke me, I stood." The ember inside me flared, no longer fragile. I knew the worst wasn't over. But I also knew this. He could no longer take from me what I refused to give. The house was quiet when I came home from the fundraiser. I set the donation jar on the counter, coins clinking like distant bells. The ring around my neck was warm, almost pulsing with the echo of applause that still lingered in my ears. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. But peace doesn't last long when wounds run deep. 3 days later, another letter arrived. I knew the handwriting before I touched it. Ethan's. The envelope trembled in my hands. I carried it to the kitchen table, where so many battles had begun, and stared until the edges blurred. Then I opened it. "Mom, please. I've lost everything. Claire is gone. I have no home, no job, no money. I'm sick. I need you. Please don't turn your back on me. I'm still your son." The words bled into me like water into paper. For a moment, the years folded back, and I saw him as a child again. Hair messy from sleep, eyes pleading for one more story before bed. My chest clenched with the ache of memory. But the present pressed harder. I remembered the hospital, his refusal to come when Robert died. I remembered the empty pew at the funeral, the slap across my face in front of 200 guests, the police dragging him away in cuffs. Every chance he had to choose love, he had chosen greed instead. My hand shook as I set the letter down. I whispered into the silence. Where were you, Ethan, when I begged you to stand beside me? Where were you when your father needed you most? The phone sat inches away. I reached for it, thumb hovering over his number. I could call. I could forgive. I could let him back into the circle of my life. But my hand froze. Forgiveness without change is just permission, and I had given him permission too many times. Slowly, I pulled open the drawer and slid the letter beside the others. Robert's ring lay there too, glinting softly. I laid my palm against the wood. I love him, I whispered. God knows I do. But love doesn't mean letting him keep breaking me. Instead of dialing Ethan, I opened another folder, the foundation papers. The ink was still fresh, the mission statement clear. To protect women like me, women who had been stripped bare by those they trusted most. I signed the final line that made it official, my hand steady as steel. That night, I attended the support group again. I read a portion of Ethan's letter aloud, my voice cracking but not collapsing. Around the circle, women nodded. One reached across and touched my hand. You saved yourself, she said softly. That matters too. Her words settled into me like stones forming a foundation. For the first time, I believed I wasn't just surviving. I was building. The days that followed were quieter. News of Ethan's scandals still swirled, videos replayed online, headlines whispered in the aisles of the grocery store. But slowly, the storm shifted. The shame no longer stuck only to me. People began to see the truth for what it was, a son's choices, not a mother's failure. One afternoon, a man stopped me outside the post office. His voice was gentle. Ma'am, what your son did was unforgivable, but you showed strength. Don't forget that. I nodded, throat tightening, but managed a small smile. For once, the weight of his words didn't crush me. It lifted. At home, the house no longer felt like a mausoleum. Robert's chair still sat in the corner, his glasses folded on the table, but the silence had changed. It no longer mocked. It held. I knew Ethan might never return, or worse, he might return only to wound again. But I had made my choice. I had saved the inheritance, yes, but more than that, I had saved my dignity. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I sat on the porch watching the street glow orange. Children played tag. Neighbors watered lawns. Life went on, imperfect, but intact. I touched the ring at my neck and whispered into the wind. Robert, I kept the promise. I protected what we built. And in that moment, I understood. Love without respect is only an echo. I could still love Ethan, but I would not let him destroy me. If you've ever faced something like this, know you're not alone. Share your story so others can learn they aren't powerless. And if this journey touched you, I invite you to stay with me. Subscribe to Roots and Secrets, and let's keep these truths alive together.